Okay, so I guess there are a couple of reasons why the hatred, the religious hatred that takes place. At this in this present century, one of the victims, I guess it's post World War, and of course in 21st century as well, post 9/11, definitely post 9/11, but even before that to a certain extent, the thing is, Islamic religion is seen as something which is quite fundamentalist. Islamic religion is something which is seen as hatred. Now, Islam in general, people look people if there is if I put into few words, it would be like this: the religion which gets most hatred in non-Islamic countries. It's irrespective of which dominating religion is that in particular in that country. Irrespective of that factor, the religion which gets the most hatred in non-Islamic countries is Islam. There are a couple of reasons for that. First of all, the reason why Islam specifically gets this, I should say, is because of their high fertility rate. Um, you know, I mean, this is fact. One could not debate it. If we have to see across cultural reasons, across different cultures, across different continents and all those things, we would find that Muslims in general have more kids, and this is the reason why uh, Islam is currently the fastest growing religion in the world, and majority of it is not conversion or forced conversion or any other thing for that matter. It's simply the high fertility rate. Now, the high fertility rate is problematic, seems to be problematic to people, because in some way it seems to be overpowering one's religion over the other, right? I mean, we haven't come across that stage in India right now, where where people are asking, will Muslim overpower the Hindu majority country? uh, but the questions, like the organizations and people are asking, like those have been around in the moon. Take a example, a country like Lebanon, which was once equally divided between Maronite Catholics and Muslims, and there was clash between the two community. Later, it was found that the later it was decided that the president would be a Maronite Catholic and the prime minister would be um, a Muslim. Um, and now we see that clearly Muslims are majority. Lebanon has become a Muslim majority country. It's almost like the Maronite Catholics, especially the president Maronite Catholic and the Maronite Catholic community in general, are just like puppets. It's just they're following that rule of Maronite Catholic become being a president, as just a norm, or it's like a token or something, right? It's because they're clearly in majority, they're clearly political power is in their hands. Lebanon has often been accused in taking part in the anti-Israel terrorism, or whatever one might call that, depending upon where they stand on the Israeli issue. So one is that you seem to see, I mean, the political overpowering, that is that some people say it's a dominant narrative which doesn't which doesn't have any facts or something like that. Well, I would say it depends upon which country you are talking about, but yeah, if a particular community has if a particular community has more kids, way more kids, it's scientifically logical that at some point of time in future, that particular community, especially if the other community is not growing at the same pace, is having less number of children, then it's predicted that people would be and that community would grow over the other community. I mean, this is something which has, it's not just nowadays that we are seeing that. Even, I mean, it depends upon whether you believe in Bible or not, but even in Bible, there is one story that the about Egyptians and the Israelites. So when this is before Moses, So the Pharaoh ordered the Israelites, that the babies, because they were getting more overpowered. Israelites had come to Egypt, at the time of Jacob, and at the time of Joseph, etc. And then they had grown in number, and finally people see that they has overpowering us, right? And that was the issue of with regard to Bible. So that's a clearly a story which talks about how human societies in general think of it. I mean, if you look at any other matter, for that matter, ethnicity, uh, immigration, and all those things have been because that there is one community which is growing at a faster rate than the other community. So that is one thing. That is one major thing why Islam is getting Islam is getting hatred, because it is so there are countries where it is clearly in majority, and then people are immigrating to Europe, and people are immigrating to the other parts of the world, which have become quite liberal, right? And they don't find a reason, and they have benefited from immigration, no doubt about it. So they have benefited from immigration, and they are liberal, so they won't identify, or they are secular in the governance at least, and so they cannot filter out that we would accept a Muslim immigrant, or a Hindu immigrant, or a Christian immigrant. More or less, we rarely, yeah, like Europeans would rarely find an Asian Christian immigrant, as for their companies, etc. If they have to search immigrants outside Europe and Americas, they are necessarily looking at a non-Christian. So one cannot go with that argument that it cannot be chosen. Like, of course, after the Trump, with regard to terrorism, it has taken a certain sort of banning. Of course, that also got much of criticism by people, that it is an Islamophobic move. So clearly, that immigration, that overpowering of culture, I mean, southern France is said to be becoming Islamic in couple of decades in future. Southern France would mostly become Islamic, and this is also seen as a time when crusade would come again. I mean, there are conspiracy theories going on like that, but clearly, because crusades was fought over southern France. I mean, that's where the Christian army actually stopped the Islamic invasion from getting in more towards Europe. So, and we see in around, let's say, in couple of decades, in few decades afterwards, we see that it would be a Muslim majority population. Many parts of UK have been a Muslim majority population. So this is clearly seen as a move towards a religious, as a move towards overpowering the other community. Added to that, there is also a fact that terrorism definitely is, there are many terrorist activities and that are taking place. One could say it exists in all religions. True, I mean, not true, I should say. There would be some religions who would be exception to it, but it would, let's say, there are a couple of bad people in all religions. There are a couple of bad interpreters in all religions. If not, let's say, I cannot talk about other religions, and I won't talk about it. But at least for Christianity, and even within the Catholic Church, I would say yes, there are a couple of bad people, who interpret the verse differently. Just like there are a couple of bad people who interpret the Islamic verses differently. Now, whether that interpretation for Islamic verse is correct or not, I cannot say, because I'm not a Muslim. I don't speak for them. But for Catholics, I would say no, it's not. Definitely, when it doesn't have a just cause, and just cause in the sense whether you are really acting in self-defense, there is absolutely no reason why you should attack the others. So, the fact is that that is also there, and that's growing. Moreover, Europeans, if it would have been seen that okay, liberal Muslims are coming to Europe, or liberal Muslims are coming to America, and they are they are liberals, just like liberals in America and liberals in Canada and Europe. But the fact is that even there, we see that there are a couple of young generation who are born with this Muslim identity, and they Muslims in general. That's also one more reason that other religions are seeing. For example, in Europe, Christianity is seen as a religion which has lost its ground, and clearly in many countries Christianity has actually lost its power, prestige, ground, whatever it is. Now it's almost like mystical religion. But at the same time, we see that the Muslims who are there are not showing the same attitude. So there was once a report, I don't know, with regard to in Britain, which said that almost many youth in London especially, and England in general, and in London especially in London, claim themselves to be atheists. Only the Muslims claim to be religious. Most of the people who claim to be religious are Muslims. That means that Christianity is declining in these areas, and that would further a cause of hatred. When you see that your religion is not progressing, and when you see the others' religion is progressing, that is also cause for hatred. Terrorism is definitely there. It has reached Europe. Many people, we already know about the Paris attack. Even there have been quite many Islamic militants going to Syria, fighting the war for ISIS, coming back, and they have given testimonies that there is a network of Islamic State in Europe as well. So all this is definitely causing hatred towards Islam. And finally, and this is the last reason, but this is one of which is the most attacking one. When you look at scriptures, Islamic scriptures also have violence. Now that clearly, as I told before as well, that it clearly depends upon interpretation. There are definitely violence against the kafirs or the infidels, but then the liberal Muslims interpret those verses as something which meant during that period of time for that particular people, for pagans in Mecca, for pagans in Medina, and for that period, not for the humanity in general. Quran doesn't speak for that, etc. However, irrespective of the interpretation, the verse is there. People are interpreting those verses literally, both who are Muslims and who are jihadis and who want Islam to be completely get rid of. So because of all these reasons, Muslims in general are getting hatred, and that's and Islam is getting hated. Now, what could people in general do? First of all, people in general should see that in past they have all religions, like especially with regard to Christianity, I can say that we also had our hands in the blood. We didn't have a clean hands either, but at the same time, and of course we should also see that it depends upon interpretation and all of that matter. But I think so one thing that so what the non-Muslims could do in general is to see that that we don't hate them, right? We don't hate them for the face value. Having said that, I think so there is a lot which the Muslim community could do. First and foremost thing, I don't see a reason why you should have more kids in a country where the community in general is having less kids, is having fewer number of kids. When you are an immigrant in that country, though you are a citizen or you may not be a citizen, when you are an immigrant in that country, I don't see a reason why you should have that many kids. and I don't see a reason why you should have many kids in general when in a country like India or elsewhere where there is a population crisis going on, um, and there are so many other things that go into matter. So clearly, in many Muslim sects, perhaps or contraceptives might not be allowed, so they could do natural family planning, just as what is advocated by the Catholic Church. So, but surely, I guess, with regard to see, one could be as liberal as possible, but if there are conservatives, they would clearly pick on this point that the birth rate of this particular community is high, and the only thing they cannot, you know, taking, let's say, saying this thing what I am saying right now, many of people would say that this particular is definitely yeah, Islamophobic, which would be general community. Like if what I am saying, okay, I am saying in an academic room with giving my message, but if this is said publicly, which is said, you would see that all those arguments are coming from right wing leaders, right, of the society. So there would clearly not be a secular argument in this aspect. It would be seen as Islamophobic. At the same time, then the only thing that people would rebel would be rebelling in form of let your community grow as well. So then there would be push from the Christian side as well to have as many kids as possible, so as to make sure that, or even, I mean, at certain point of time, if that religion, if terrorism and all these things continues, then there might be a push from the secular liberal European side as well, without taking into a part that without taking into the part of religion. They would also push for this idea that there should be banning immigration and let there be more number of kids in the family, in the white European families. So I guess this would act as a burden. Moreover, one should always have a responsible parenthood for this, and so yeah, that's the reason why Islam is hated around the world in all the non-Islamic countries.